Now in our 6th year, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network. Talk like you've never heard it before.
Hey, hey, I'm Alex. That's me in red. The show is the Ramble, and we're here until midnight tonight, coming to you from New York City. Ladies and gentlemen, what are you laughing about?
Nothing. Just go ahead.
Come on. This is Steve Kravitz, ladies and gentlemen. What the fuck are you laughing about?
I was laughing at you.
Why? What was I doing?
Oh, the whole old man blowing your nose bit.
Well, I mean, old men blow their noses. Well, I blew my nose when I was a kid. I had sinus problems, and I had allergy problems, and I was always the kid, that came to school with the red eyes and the blowing his nose all the time. You remember those kids, don't you?
Sure.
Well, that was me.
And look how well you turned out.
Now, were you one of the kids that made fun of us kids who blew our nose?
No.
Well, I mean, what kind of kid were you in school?
I was not a good student.
Well, that's not the question. We were all terrible students. That's why we went into comedy and radio, okay? But you weren't a good student, okay. But that's not what I'm asking. There was like the in crowd, and there was like the nerds, the kids who just didn't fit in. What were you?
Then you'd put me with the nerds.
Really? That bad, huh?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was also, I'll give you an example. I got caught skipping school in the 1st grade.
You mean you quit it while you still weren't even tired of it?
Right.
Yeah.
And the deal was, we walked to school. We'd walk down the hill,
mm-hmm.
and they'd ring a bell, and we'd have to line up. They'd ring a second bell, and we'd go into class or had to line up for class. So when the bell rang, I hid behind a tree. And then the second bell rang, and I kept my cover, and then I started walking home, figuring I'd be eating, Twinkies and watching Howdy Doody for the afternoon. And as I'm walking up the hill, guess who's driving down the hill?
Your father.
My mom.
Your mom. Oh,
so,
and you got busted, right?
Yeah, and then I got expelled in the 2nd grade.
2nd grade oh, wow. You really were working at it. You were really working it.
Yeah, well, too much time on my hands. I guess I was like bored in school.
You know something? I don't think there's anything wrong with being bored with school. I think school was really boring. And I think that's the fault of the educational system. Because, enjoying school is something you should enjoy, but they never made it enjoyable. They made it a drudgery.
Yeah.
Between homework and we're going to have a test today. I mean, it was all tyrannical.
Yes, it was.
I often felt, here's the thing that bothered me when I was a kid, and even when I was a kid, that they would always ask us questions. And if we answered the question correctly, we got an A, right?
Right.
So what was that more than social programming? In other words, they were programming us to give out with the right answer. Now, there was a guy years ago by the name of Dr. Banish Hoffman. How I remember that name, I have no idea.
Okay.
But he wrote a book called The Tyranny of Testing. And his argument was that there are 2 correct answers to every question, or at least 2 correct answers to every question. But what you're doing with tests in school is what you want is the correct answer, the one you want to program into them.
Right.
Okay. The argument being that, for instance, any question you would ask, there are actually two correct answers, one of which may be a little bit out there, but it's a correct answer.
Oh, give me an example.
Let me see here. Let me see if I can give you a good example of it. What is an animal with whiskers and fur?
Cat.
Well, let's see here. Don't dogs have whiskers too sometimes?
Oh, yeah, they do.
Yeah, see? So there are two correct answers to every question.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of a question you would have been asked in school, but there's always a second question you could ask. It's a little more nebulous, a little more ethereal, but it could be considered a correct answer.
Right.
But what he essentially was saying is that what schools are trained to do is you're like a computer. They program you, and if you spit out the right answer, you pass, and if you don't spit out the right answer, you fail. And that's because
we're Pavlov's dog.
Right. But what they're doing is, for instance, I'll give you a good example. When I was a kid, I loved psychology, so I took psychology in high school. And our textbook, chapter 8, I think it was something like that, was all about homosexuality. And I had a teacher who was gay, so he missed that chapter. He just, we go to chapter 8 next, teacher? No, look, read chapter 9. You know, and in other cases, I remember once in school, okay, here's a good example of the correct answer. I had a teacher in college who had us read an essay called Communism versus Democracy.
Okay.
All right? And the next day we came in and she said, anybody have a comment on the communism versus democracy? And I said, I do. And she said, what is it? I said, well, this article is completely fallacious. It has a wrong premise. She said, well, why do you say that? I said, because you can't compare communism to democracy. Communism is an economic form, and democracy is the relationship of a government to its people. And she said, you're wrong. Next.
That was it?
That was it. Now, I think I was right. You know, to this day, I maintain that I was right in my assumption that by comparing the two, you were prejudicing the student. You were thinking that the polar opposite of communism was democracy.
Right.
That's not true, because there have been Allende in South America, before he was assassinated, was what he called a democratic communist. He believed in voting, he believed in the will of the people, but he also believed in a communist system as the economic system for his country.
Huh.
Okay? So we get programmed, and if we get programmed right, we get A's, and if we don't get programmed right or think outside the box, we get F's. So that's why I didn't like school. I found it drudgery. I found it, draconian. I mean, tonight we're going to read chapter 47. That's your homework for tonight.
Right.
And it's very nice. Occasionally, I think maybe there should be homework, because there are things you can't cover in an hour. But then when you've got like 6 classes and every one of them are giving you homework, you've got more of a workload than you had at school.
In some cases.
Yeah. I mean, I hated school. I just hated it.
I liked school probably once I got to college.
Okay. All right. But that was a place where people thought a lot. Okay. Right. I mean, there was a lot of thinking going on. So that was completely different situation, I think.
Right.
Colleges always and universities always thought of themselves as a place where we sought out knowledge.
Right.
It wasn't programmed into us. So I think that's probably why you like college. I did 2 years of college and I got bored with it, because I wanted to be I was in broadcasting.
Right.
And I wanted to study broadcasting. So I studied broadcasting. And then what I learned was, by doing it, by working at a job, I was learning more than I ever would sitting in a classroom pretending to do radio. You know?
Right.
So I quit. I just figured, somebody else needs this seat. Right? I don't need it. And I didn't need it. Not for my profession.
No.
I imagine as a comedian, you probably never needed college either.
No, but I went to college for different reasons. I went to college, A, to live in different cities in Massachusetts, and I got to live in France for 2 years.
Okay. That was a treat.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I got to study with actual masters, guys that, one guy actually created a style of theater that I studied with.
Oh, really?
And the other guy was the last living master of commedia dell'arte, which is 15th century Italian comedy.
So answer me this. How did you get to go to France? I mean, was it part of your college curriculum, or how did that work?
My junior year, I designed my last 2 years. I wrote up my curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a division called Bachelor's Degree in Independent Concentration.
Wow.
And in it, I wrote in, I would like to go here to study with this gentleman for these reasons. And I had a faculty advisor. And I want to study with this gentleman for these reasons, blah, blah, blah. And they okayed it. So I got credit through, while living in Paris, I was getting credit at UMass.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's terrific.
And then when I came home, I did a demonstration at UMass. And that was kind of like my test.
Oh, wow. What a cool... It must have been... You enjoyed living in Paris for 2 years, didn't you?
Very, very much. Very much.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's to begin with, it's a beautiful town.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous. And secondly, everybody is a different word for everything over there.
Well, yeah, because it's in French.
You know what I used to say? I always used to argue this, that, American kids are stupid. And people would say, why? I said, well, you go to a place like France, and do you realize that every child in France speaks fluent French?
I said to a guy, when I first got there, I said to a guy, parlez-vous anglais? And he turned to me and he said, yes, I speak English, but I don't speak American. And he walked away.
The one thing I found about the French that bothered me, though, is they're a little snobby about Americans. They kind of had an attitude about Americans.
That's our fault for, after World War II, when we basically gave them money to rebuild Paris, rebuild France, and then we were there and we were obnoxious. We expected everybody to speak English, walking around.
Well, we had the attitude of, we saved your asses.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody likes that attitude,
So there's a conflict there. I mean, it's better now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
When I was there, they were trying to get rid of all the Franglais words.
Well, the one day that every time I went to France, I felt like they didn't want me there. I mean, I remember going to the Eiffel Tower, to the second floor where there's a restaurant there, and going into the restaurant. And I don't know, I was wearing a soccer shirt or something that may have been the wrong color, and they wouldn't serve me. I mean, a waiter, and the guy would walk right by me.
Really?
Yeah, I felt like they really hated me. That's why when I was on my way to Spain. So when I got to Spain, I really loved Spain because the Spanish are the opposite. The Spanish will, if you don't know how to get somewhere and you don't speak the language, they will spend an hour with you trying to understand what you're saying and help you.
Right.
Whereas the French, if you don't speak it perfectly,
No, well, that's not true, Alex.
Well, no,
There's a big difference between Parisian French and the outside of Paris French,
yeah,
France.
yeah.
They're very helpful, very sweet. Like in southern France, you couldn't ask for nicer people.
You're right. You're right. I've been there. You're absolutely correct. But my wife, my ex-wife, spoke perfect French with no discernible accent because she learned it
Right.
from her mother. Okay, it wasn't like it was like maybe there was a you got a sense that it wasn't Parisian, but she spoke perfect French.
Right.
And we went to France, and she spoke French to them, and they acted like they didn't know what she was saying. You know, and she spoke perfect French.
Right.
You know, so I bet they noticed she was an American, so they were going, huh? You know, I mean, the Parisians are the worst. Okay.
Well, then go there in August, because in August there's no Parisians in Paris.
What did somebody once say? You could conquer Paris in what is it? August.
August.
You could
August.
conquer Paris in August by telephone. You know.
They're all gone. They have a month vacation.
Right. Don't ever go there, by the way, in August because all the stores are closed. Everything.
And the only people there are tourists.
Yeah, yeah, and they have nowhere to eat or anything because it's all closed. But I so hated Paris on one trip I went there that I had to go to Spain, and there was going to be a strike the next day in Paris, and I was supposed to be there the next day, so I left a day early because I didn't want to be there for the strike.
No, why would you?
Yeah. I was also in, where was it? I was in Greece when I was sitting on the tarmac in an airplane and it couldn't take off because there was a 3-hour strike.
A 3-hour strike?
A 3-hour strike, yeah, yeah. And then when the 3-hour strike was over, boom, took off. Yeah.
That's absurd.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just ridiculous.
Well, I mean, they do. They take care of business over there. You know, I mean, they're going to have a strike. They're going to have a strike. They don't give a crap about you. But I just remember Paris. I mean, I love Paris. It's a beautiful city. God, you know, it's just the people that sometimes are hard to deal with. And you're right. The south of France, they're much nicer.
You know, people could say the same thing about New Yorkers, Alex.
What the fuck are you saying?
You know exactly what the fuck I'm saying.
Well, here's the epitome of New York, right? Fuck you. Fuck me. Fuck you.
Right.
That's New York.
Right.
Yeah. No, New Yorkers, I don't think New Yorkers were ever nasty. I think New Yorkers would, if you didn't know how to get to the Empire State Building, they would give you directions.
Yeah, but what if you didn't speak English?
Oh, well, then fuck you. You know.
Right?
Well, if you don't speak English, we don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but you wouldn't take the time to help them.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Right?
Well, I think I would. I would make my best attempt, but I really don't speak any other languages. I spoke a modicum of Spanish because when I was in Spain enough that you become somewhat semi-functional with that. I found you as a former mime.
Easy.
Huh?
Easy.
No. You will appreciate this. That you can speak almost any language to a person of that language, even though you don't know it, by using a lot of mime. I mean, a lot of what we say anyway is, I want to eat.
Right.
And so, really, if you want to communicate with them, usually you can. I mean, for instance, I learned how to say that, okay, in Spanish, okay? So I could go into a pastry shop, look at an eclair, point at it, and go that.
Right.
And I'm fine. So a lot of language is body. And you can use your body to get a lot of things across,
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you don't need to be nasty, and So if somebody is making an attempt to get his point across using his body and stuff, I'll stop and help him. But I don't. How often does that happen to a New Yorker? They meet up with a foreigner who can't speak English.
Right.
Very rare. And New Yorkers, by and large, I've always found that New Yorkers are kinder than most people give them credit for. In fact, I don't think, do we still have that gruff reputation?
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
I'm sure you do.
I mean, what I love about Andrew Cuomo, outside of the fact that he hits up on women, and that's cool, is what I like about Andrew Cuomo is that he is such a New Yorker that I like that.
Right.
They say he's gruff and he's tough, and it's an toxic atmosphere. Well, that toxic atmosphere is his attitude. He's from fucking Queens. What do you expect?
Right.
I mean, he is of the fuck me, fuck you school of arguing.
Of thought.
Yeah. So, they say, well, a lot of people didn't like him because he was gruff and everything. What kind of New Yorker are you if you're bothered by Andrew Cuomo's attitude? So, anyway, but it was just, I think it's so cool that you lived in Paris for, 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. You must have eaten baguettes out your ass.
Yes.
But of course,
and a lot of camembert cheese.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is you were living in Paris as a young man and probably did not have a big budget.
Like no budget.
So it was always camembert and a baguette, right?
Right.
Was camembert cheap enough?
It was cheaper than you could get a baguette with camembert all the way across it, the whole baguette, for 3 francs. So it's 75 cents.
Okay. Cool. And that.
Now, if it was brie, it probably would have been like $3.
Oh, okay. But that would fill you up for the day?
Well, that'd be a snack.
Because when I was a kid living in Hollywood, because I was with the Armed Forces Radio and Television Service, and I was on a military budget, all right, I subsisted entirely on Kraft macaroni and cheese.
Okay.
Because I could buy a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese in those days for 19 cents.
Right.
And I could make that up, eat it, and it'll keep me full for half a day.
Also don't forget, to supplement my budget, I would perform on the street.
Yeah.
I play my guitar in the metro.
Yeah.
The weekends, I would go to this place called Pompidou, and I do pantomime for the tourists.
Yeah.
I'd get stuck in the box. I'd pull the rope. Whatever it took to get their money in my hat.
Did you wear whiteface?
Yep, whole thing.
You did the whole thing with the white face and the whole thing, yeah.
Whole thing.
Now, who set up that style? Was that an old style, or did Marcel Marceau establish it?
No, because you can actually, the movie The Children of Paradise.
Right.
Les Enfants de Paradis.
Les Enfants de Paradis, which is very...
Les Enfants de Paradis.
Yeah.
It's about Pierrot, and the reason he wears a white face is so people in the back can see him, because they didn't have rake theaters.
Oh, okay. Rake theaters, by the way, are when you're in a theater and it's kind of goes up. That's a rake theater.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they were more performing on the street.
Yeah. And wasn't Marcel Marceau in that picture?
No.
No, he wasn't? I thought he was.
The guy who taught me corporeal mime is in that picture.
Wait a minute. If I remember his name correctly, Jean-Pierrot Barrault?
Jean-Louis Barrault?
Louis Barrault, right.
right?
Right.
And Etienne de Croo. Etienne de Croo is my professor.
Aren't we getting terribly snotty here, folks? Hey, we've run out of time, so we can't get snotty anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Hey, great talking to you again, my friend. Let's do it next week, okay?
All right, I'll put it in the book.
Ladies and gentlemen, that there is Stephen Kravitz. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Alex.
Now in our 6th year, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network. Talk like you've never heard it before.
Yeah, I love talking with Steve. I love talking with Steve. He is so intelligent and so traveled. I mean, you know, I find out it's funny, you know. Oh, excuse me, I didn't turn on my lights. There we go. There's always something I'm forgetting these days. Anyway, I really every day, every time I talk to some comedian, I always find something out about them I never knew before. You know, so that's pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, listen. I want you, if you get a chance, go over to YouTube, and there's a video there of my interview with Debbie Durst, all about the problems that Will has had over the last year with his stroke and so on, and the cost of doing business with the hospitals, and it's just, you know, it's quite a story. And she speaks it well and tells you how you can help along with his recovery. And I decided that I would do that and then spread it out over the internet and ask people if they wanted to, you know, deal with this, and will they watch it. And I'm asking everybody to go online and maybe spread it out to the people they know, and so on. And it's starting to gain some traction, so I'm thankful for that. And we may play that interview next week, but for now, it is just basically online. Oh, I'm going to sneeze any second now. See, here we go with the old man with the tissue. Okay, it's what they call white balance. There we go. Okay, all righty. Well, I think that we probably should bring in our Zoom panel, and that would be a matter of me pushing this button, and then you will see everybody start, see how they all start jumping in there, and they're all part of the thing, and there we go. There we got the initial group, and hopefully we get a few more people in addition to this. So we got Jeff up there. Hi there, Jeff. Yes, the carjacker and
Car thief.
What a bad.
car thief. Is that
Tommy Yamaguchi told you guys this.
Tommy Yamaguchi said it's Will Durst's birthday today.
It is Will Durst's birthday today. In fact, I sent him a note wishing him a happy birthday. I want to see, did he get it? Well, I don't want to bring it up because then it'll show up on the screen and everything. But I wished him a happy birthday today. And I tried to call him, actually, but he wasn't answering. So he probably knew it was me. So that's why. Yeah. Hello to Alan, and hello to Robert, and Jeff, and Brian, and Trucker Steve, and Charlie, and now John Larkin, who has also joined us. So this is the same bunch we had last night, by the way, except Kevin isn't there yet. You know, but you know, you could call too if you're watching. You know, I'm sick and tired of all those people who sit there in the aren't you, Charlie, in the room, in the chat room, and they're complaining about stuff, or they'll write me a letter and say, yeah, I didn't like the show last night, it sucked, you know. And then I go, well, if it sucked, why didn't you call and make it not suck? Okay.
Yeah, they keep messaging us telling them to get you off the show.
Do
Kick
they?
off
Really?
Alex, it's terrible for the show, bringing you guys down.
That's what it says on the notes right now on YouTube.
No, it doesn't say that. I can read them. In fact, one guy says, I listened to Alex from about 1971 to 1978.
God, who can remember that far back?
Well, that was in New York City. That was
Wow.
here in New York. Yeah, like Robert, did you listen to me back then?
I absolutely did.
You were a kid.
I listened to you back when you were a serious political commentator.
Oh, okay.
Well, you had Abby on all the time. You had
Yeah.
Jerry on
Yeah,
quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
you were heavy duty,
yeah.
you know, political
And
commentary back
I
then.
could only do that for a while before I started it started eating away at me. You know? And when I went to San Francisco, I started having comics on it. It didn't mean that I didn't get political. Didn't mean that I didn't have political comments. In fact, I felt that what I was saying in the context of a comedy show got more points across than it ever did when I was doing a serious kind of issue-oriented talk show here in New York City, because people were listening to be entertained and they would get a little message here and there, you know? And I thought that was far more subversive. Yeah, so it looks like you disagree with me, Robert.
I don't know, because when you went to California, I kind of lost track of you. And then someone I knew in California said that you were on radio, and I said, "Oh, he's great," and he started talking about you with comedians, and I said, "Comedians? What are you talking about?"
Well,
You know, I remember him when he was talking to Tanya / Patty Hearst, you know, or at least talking about her.
yeah.
And Angela Davis and Jerry Rubin and all those topics. And I thought he helped form my political leftness. And he's telling me he's talking to comedians?
It went from Jerry Rubin to Bob Rubin.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
It came as a shock to me.
Yeah. Well, it went. I went from Abby Hoffman to who do you call it?
Monty.
Huh?
Monty Hoffman.
What? Monty Hoffman.
Monty.
Yeah.
Monty Hoffman. Oh, very good. Yeah.
I had Hoffman on. I had.
He passed away, and Warren Thomas passed away, right?
Oh yeah.
Both of
Yeah.
those guys,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Both of those guys were pretty, they were really edgy. I like those
Well,
guys.
I never thought
Monty.
Monty was that great. You know.
Yeah.
He was just a
Just a
type.
character.
He was a character. On the
Yeah.
other hand, Warren Thomas is maybe one of the funniest people I've ever known.
Yeah.
You know, he was the riff master. You know, you get into like a riff battle with him as a comedian, and he'd always win. You know, he was that good. He was really terrific.
And if you told us then, when I was listening to you then, that you were doing all that stuff in New York, I would never have believed
Well,
it.
you know, the beauty of radio, especially back in those days, is I could establish myself with a certain persona in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could move to the West Coast and create a whole secondary persona and not have to be a slave to the old persona. You know, I mean, I was a young guy when I was doing that, and what they were calling me in the newspapers was the youth guru. That was the term they used. I was the youth guru. Well, you know, it's pretty hard to keep being the youth guru when you keep getting older. So when I went to San Francisco, I could then reinvent myself and reinvent what I did in another form. I was still kind of doing the same thing in a way. I mean, because my persona came along with it and all the ancillary parts of my personality on the air. But I was able to kind of like, you know, take on a new persona. And I was I was more successful in San Francisco than I ever was in New York. Yes, John.
Before I ever heard you in San Francisco, I went to a comedy show that you were hosting at the Keystone Palo Alto.
Yeah.
And Bobcat Goldthwait, it was right when he was just getting started, was on the set. And then you would come in the middle and introduce the next comic. And when you'd come on, everyone goes, "Fuck you!" And you were flipping everybody off too, you know? It was like, I was like, "Who is this guy?" And he was going, "That's Alex Bennett, fuck you!" And you're going, "Fuck you!"
Yeah, it was a love fest.
Yeah. Then I started listening, and then I got your stick, and I go, "Oh, this guy's good."
Well, I never created what I considered a positive persona. no matter where I worked. That was the similarity between New York and San Francisco.
Yeah.
You know, that I never wanted to be loved, because I figured that if a talk show host or anybody doing radio was loved, then they must have done something to kiss the audience's ass. And I didn't want to kiss the audience's ass. I had more respect for them than that.
You know how when in the late 60s, you liked the Beatles, but if you wanted to piss off your parents, you told them you liked the Rolling Stones. Well, you were the Rolling Stones, in effect. You know, like if I told an adult that I listened to you, I would usually get some kind of a snotty remark.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you were out there to them. You were counterculture.
Yeah. I had long hair.
Yeah. And the guests you had and the beliefs you portrayed were other than the norm.
Right. But you see, here, I got to tell you, what I did in San Francisco wasn't all that different. Follow me on this one. In New York, who I made a specialty out of having on were music acts, rock and roll musicians, okay? And some of the left-wing political people. Rock musicians always were on my show, okay? That and folk music people, too, because that was a big thing at the time. And no one else was interviewing rock people. I was the only guy doing it at that time. Now, you may find that impossible to believe, that there was a time when nobody went around interviewing rock and roll acts, but there was a time. And when I first started calling people, I remember the first person I ever had on who was a musical guest, and it was Melanie. Remember Melanie? I had a brand new pair of roller skates. You got it. And I kind of liked the idea of having a musician on, so I asked the agent who was with her, do you have any other rock people? And they said, you really want to interview rock people? Because it was considered rock people had nothing to say. And for the most part, they didn't, okay? Yeah. You know. But I said, yeah, who do you got? And then, so next thing I know, Delaney and Bonnie are coming in with Eric Clapton, and they're playing songs in the studio. And then the Grateful Dead is there, all of them except for one. And they're smoking pot in my face. And then the next thing I know, I'm doing this act. I'm doing people like Phil Oakes, and I'm having Pete Seeger on, and I'm having this. And before I knew it, I was the go-to guy for musicians to come and be interviewed. And so when I went to San Francisco, I was looking for something to kind of change that, okay? Find a new area that was maybe more in, or create a new in. And I started interviewing comics. And nobody had comics on the air in the mornings. And I started using comics. And after I started using them, people all over the country were doing the same thing. And it became a thing, bring the comics in. The only difference was I knew how to handle comics. Most of the hosts of morning shows in the country didn't know how to. You know. What is that? Oh, is that?
That's probably.
I hear.
I think it's Brian talking to his dog.
Rocky can talk.
Oh, Rocky. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Rocky talkie.
This is my dog? How dare you, sir?
That is no dog.
See this guy right there with the black hat? He called you a dog.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
There's going to be a time coming up where guys are going to be knocking on the door and you'd wish she was a dog. Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, I'm saying, so really the act didn't change. I just changed the kind of people that I would have on. And I reinvented myself in California. And I never felt at any time I sold out, from what I did in New York. It was just time to change. Abby Hoffman was out of jail and out giving speeches everywhere he could and trying to make as much money as possible.
Did you leave New York or
New York? New York.
But like if you would have stayed there longer, or it was time to go.
New York left me.
Got it.
No, it was time for me to go. The persona had worn out. The time that I was doing it, it had worn out. And it's funny that when I was finally had worn out for me in California, I came back to New York because everybody said, come back here, there'll be work for you here. And sure enough, there was, you know. And,
But you went to Florida first.
Oh, no, that was a small period of time while I was in San Francisco where the station and I parted ways. And I couldn't get hired in San Francisco because San Francisco, I got to say this, it's a very, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't like people who are successful and beat their ass in the mornings, you know? So they would rather not hire them rather than say, hey, we can get him now. Instead, they want to reject you. So I had to leave, and I got offered a job in Florida. So I went to Florida. Oh, was that a mistake? Oh, my God, was that a fucking mistake?
The anus of America.
Oh, that's the worst place. In Miami, oh, God, the most disgusting, despicable people I've ever had to deal with. Just
That's where I was at that time.
They were,
Except Albert. Albert's from there, right? He lives there.
no, Albert's from, Albert, I think, was born and raised in New York.
Oh, but he lives there now, right?
He lives there now.
Yeah.
I don't know why. You
Because
know.
it's warm.
I guess because it's warm. I guess as you get older, you want the warmth, you know.
Yep, I do.
But you know, so I went, and then I came back to San Francisco, and the station had found that their ratings had just completely disappeared, and they wanted me back at the station, so I went back there.
Oh, so what was that when they had that guy named Perry something or
Perry
another?
Stone, one guy got a guy called Perry Stone. They thought he was a good idea,
Yeah,
but he was a shock jock, but he was just
horrible,
but he was a horrible shock jock.
Yeah.
You know, you know.
Charlie, what does your shirt say?
What?
Charlie, what does your shirt say?
English.
Oh, that's
important,
cute.
But math is important.
Math is important to us.
How many T-shirts do you have, Charlie?
Oh, probably 40.
Because I only got one. This one that says 1939 on it, and that's it. You know, I don't even change it. I sleep in it. I wake up in it. It smells. You can't smell it. You know. So.
Probably got orange spray all over it.
But as I say, you know, the wonderful thing about radio in those days, you could reinvent yourself. Today, you're like syndicated, and so you're all over the country, and you don't have the chance to reinvent yourself. Once you've been spent and you're yesterday's news, goodbye. You know. I mean, I have to hand it to Howard how he's managed to last this long without people just getting tired of him. You know, so.
I had one encounter with Abby Hoffman. He spoke at my college, and after it was over, I walked up to him and I asked him what I thought was a really bright, intelligent political question.
What was the question?
And he looked me in the eye and he said, "Dude, you're taking things much too seriously." And he laughed and he walked away. Yeah.
And how long did you stand there by yourself?
I stood there with my mouth open for about 5 minutes, like, oh shit.
Yeah, yeah. I you know, I mean, yeah, that was Abby.
Abby was a master, though, at manipulating the media. Like, he understood how the media worked, and he knew how to create events that the media would latch on to, like the Yippee Party.
By the way,
example.
for people who don't know who Abby Hoffman is, he's Sacha Baron Cohen. Okay? Anyway.
Well, that was
well,
helpful.
Abby was great at manipulating the media because he was great at manipulating anybody. And
Yeah,
the reason I say that is, do you know what he was before he actually became like the radical? What his profession was? He was a clinical psychologist.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Now that you say that.
Yeah, he was a clinical psychologist, and the first time I met him, he knew how to hone in on something that would just stick a knife in between my ribs. Or at least it wasn't in my case, it wasn't my ribs, it was Ronnie's ribs. Because after we did our first show with him, we took him out to have a bite to eat after the show around midnight, when you could get a good meal around midnight in New York City. okay? And we're sitting there, and we just had a litter of kittens. And my wife was asking everybody, Ronnie was asking anybody who would get within shouting distance of her, do you want a kitten? And so she looks at him and goes, Abby, do you like cats? And Abby, without even blinking and instinctively knowing just how to get to her, looked at him and said, are they good to eat?
Oh, jeez.
And that was our first real encounter with Abby Hoffman, and we became good friends with him.
Yeah, the other white meat.
The other white meat.
My favorite Abby thing was when I first realized he wasn't totally on the level was out in Chicago in '68 when he invented the Yippie Party, and it made it into this big threat. Like people in Chicago were afraid that the Yippies were going to put LSD in Lake Michigan, and
they were that day's Antifa.
Yeah,
in that
it was an idea.
Well, what happened was one night he and Jerry Rubin and Ed Sanders and Paul Krasner were all at, I think they were at Phil Oakes's place, but I'm not sure what the place was exactly, whose apartment. And they said, well, we got the Democratic convention coming up. Why don't we invent a fake group? Okay. And so they started riffing, and they came up with yippies.
Yeah.
You had the hippies, now here are the yippies. And they said, we'll start the National Yippie Party, and then we'll make people think there are tens of thousands of yippies going to Chicago.
And Daley shit his pants.
Daley shit his pants. Truth be known, there were only about 5 yippies.
Yeah, right.
And if maybe I wanted to count myself as a yippie, you might say 6. Okay, but there were, and that's how that happened.
But when I realized he wasn't on the level was when they decided in Chicago that they were going to nominate a pig for president named Mr. Pegasus.
Yeah.
And the slogan was, if we can't have him for president today, we can have him for breakfast tomorrow.
I don't remember that, but that sounds like what they would come up with. They really did Abby wasn't, Abby was the real thing, I got to tell you that. I mean, from a political standpoint, like Jerry Rubin didn't know shit about politics.
He sold out really
but
quick.
He became a stockbroker.
Oh, yeah,
Jerry Rubin was I never liked Jerry, okay? Never liked him. He would come to New York, right? I was the only guy, the problem was I was the only guy among them who owned a car, okay? So anytime Jerry would come to New York, he would ask if he could borrow my car so he could go upstate. And of course, I was just a good guy. I said, sure, take the car. Go ahead. Well, one time he came, and I needed the car. So he said, can I borrow the car to go upstate? And I said, no, I need it. And I never heard from him again. I mean, that was the kind of guy he was. And he had no real political savvy. Abby was a great performer. He would have been a great stand-up comic if that's... He chose to do his comedy, but he chose to do it in the streets. Yeah. And he was a very, very funny man. I mean,
in that time period...
sorry. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, in that time period, there were a lot of cars that were disappearing. Jeff Stein was in the neighborhood.
Well, what I was going to say is that Abby was, to begin with, one of the funniest people I've ever known. And also politically one of the most savvy. And he also, as you say, knew to a T how to manipulate the media.
Yep.
He's the guy who went across at the park across from the White House, plugged in a television set, took out a gun, and while the president was giving a speech, blew out the tube and said, I just killed the image of the president. And everybody was there to capture it, right? That was the kind of thing he did, and he was great at political theater.
Did you get to meet Mario Savio?
No. That was East. You had East Coast, you had West Coast. Mario Savio was West Coast. Yeah, he was UCL. He was UC Berkeley.
Berkeley, right?
Yeah. No, New York was Abbey. It was all the except for Bobby Seale.
Right.
It was pretty much all the Chicago Seven. We're
Yeah.
New,
Oh, yeah.
we're West Coast. Except no, Tom Hayden was California
He was Michigan at first.
at first. Yeah.
Yeah, the Port Huron statement,
Right.
actually.
But you got guys like Dave Dellinger, and
Yeah.
you had Rubin, and you had Abbey, and you had Tom Freunds. He was a New Yorker.
Was Tom Hayden really,
Tom Hayden was an asshole.
Yeah, he wasn't even close.
Is he
to
still
Hoffman.
alive? I don't even know if he's still alive. Is he?
No, he's dead.
He's dead. Good.
Yeah, he was a politician in California for a long time.
Well, here's what Abbey said to me. They said, we hate Tom. In fact, in the trial of the Chicago Seven, it's portrayed that way, that they hate Tom.
Yeah.
And they hated Tom because, among other things, Tom had said, I don't want to be on trial with the rest of these guys. I'm better than they are.
Yeah.
When the idea was, hey, you're on trial together, let's put on a show. Let's make this, if we're going to go through all of this, let's make it work for us.
Wasn't he married to Jane Fonda?
Yes, he was married
Yes.
to Jane Fonda. Yeah.
He was a congressman or something in California for a while, wasn't he?
Yep.
He tried to be hip.
He was an asshole, just an asshole. The rest of them were pretty good. They were okay. Seal never. They always say the Chicago 8 because I think it was the Chicago 7. It was the Chicago 8,
Yeah.
but
8,
then
right.
then Bobby Seale, they tied him up to a chair in the courtroom with a gag around his mouth, and finally decided to excise him from the group and try him separately. So it became the Chicago 7.
Yep.
S&M in the Chicago courtroom.
Yeah. No, I mean that was
S&M
that
tied
wa-
him up to a chair.
Yeah.
Put a gag in his mouth.
Here,
Shut up.
this is in the movie, by the way, and it's
Is it?
absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
Okay.
The judge in the trial was Judge Hoffman,
That's right.
Judge Julius Hoffman. Okay,
Yeah.
and at one point he goes, will you please sit down, Mr. Hoffman? And he said, oh, that's Abby Hoffman. He's not my son. Or he's no relative, something like that.
Yeah, something
and
like
immediately, without thinking for a second, Abby goes, thanks, Dad. So, I mean, and this is in this courtroom. I mean, Abby was brilliant. I loved Abby. Later on, he kind of, he wound up committing suicide,
The drugs or what?
No,
Alcohol?
he had, I didn't know this. He was bipolar or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And they gave
Your
him
newspapers?
drugs to
Yeah.
keep him from being bipolar. And he kept taking these drugs, and he felt that the drugs.
It's easy.
What was that? The drugs were robbing him of his essence, of his ability to be funny and to write and to do things like that. And he decided to stop taking the drugs. And when he stopped taking the drugs, the brain took over, and he got depressed, and he blew his brains out. I didn't know
Guns are good for something.
Yeah, suicide's an acceptable form of self-defense, as somebody once said. But and I remember when it happened. I was in New York. I was doing my shows out of CBS here. We were on location, so to speak, and he had killed himself. And the people at CBS asked me for my opinion, and I was gobsmacked by it because I loved Abby dearly. I had spent a lot of very special moments of my life with him. I was with him when he had run away from New York to get away from prosecution and disappeared. He was living up in the what do you call it? The lakes up in
Finger Lakes, you say?
no, not the Finger Lakes. Up in northern New York, all the lakes up there. Anyway, the river, St. Lawrence Seaway. And he was actually running an organization to save the St. Lawrence Seaway. He was that much out in the open, and nobody pegged him as being Abby Hoffman. And I had met up with him again at a party that he was at, and I'll never forget it. My friend Steve Gruberg was with me, and he came up to me and he said, "You know who I am?" And I look at him, and it's kind of like he had a beard and stuff, and I said, he said, "It's Abby." And then I look at him and I go, "Of course it's Abby," but until he said that, it had to all come into focus. And so I'm hugging him and stuff, and all of a sudden, my wife at the time, Susan, and my friend Steve and his girlfriend at the time, later his wife Adrian, come over, and I'm hugging him, and all of a sudden thinking maybe this is my gay boyfriend or something. So I said, "Oh, by the way, this is my friend," and then I didn't know what to call him. And he said Barry Freed, which was the name he was using. And I said, "Barry Freed." And then I took him over the side and I said, "Give me a call. Come see me." And as we're walking down the street, I'm walking with my friend Steve, and the two women are walking behind us. And he said, and he says this at the top of his voice. He says, "If I didn't know better, I'd think that was Abby Hoffman." And Abby comes running out of the restaurant, and at the top of his voice yells, "You got it!"
Oh, wow.
And then I went up to see him up in the the St. Lawrence Seaway up there around the lakes. I can't remember what they call it. 1,000 Islands. That's what it is. I should know it. The dressing comes from there.
Yeah.
And we went out in a little boat. When I first got there, he said, "Come on, I want to take you out in my little boat." And he got on the boat. It was a little motorboat. And we got out in the middle of the St. Lawrence Seaway. And he stands up, and in the top of his lungs, he yells out, "I'm Abby Hoffman." And after screaming that, he sits down in the boat and he says, "I got to do that at least once a week or I'd go crazy." And
you got back to the shore and they arrested you thinking you had.
Actually, he gave himself up about 2 weeks later to Barbara Walters on national TV. And she was acting like, "Oh, well, we went to the secret location." And I'm going, all he had to do was drive straight up to the, to the 1,000 Islands and turn left. Go down about 5 houses and there's Abby. But, there were stories like that the night that I met Tennessee Williams when I was having dinner at Abby's house, things like that. There's so many stories in my life that I can tell that I associate with Abby. And I often said to people, you can't spend 10 minutes with Abby without having some story to tell, And he was a very special kind of person to me. And I, now that we're talking about it, I miss him.
He's the co-founder of a youth international party.
Well, that was the Yippies.
That's the Yippies.
The Yippies.
Yeah.
Yippies,
Pay attention.
Right. I was trying to think
That's
what
where
the
you
real name
must-
was.
Well, no, it didn't have a real name. They called it the
he
Yippies.
made it up.
And then they said, we'll call it the Youth International Party, but it's really the Yippies, Because there were hippies and they were yippies. And then there was another group that came along that was started by Tom, what's his name, Prasad, who owned High Times Magazine, and they called themselves the Zippies. And they were trying to overthrow the Yippies. Oh, I mean, it was just, anyway.
That all kind of creeped up into Marin, too.
Huh?
A lot of that creeped up into Marin,
did it
too.
really? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. What? In what way?
Well, with the Dead and all those people up there, they kind of, hitchhiked off that, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of them also were very close to Abby or knew Abby or,
Yeah,
Yeah. But, I mean, we don't have people like Abby any longer. We don't have that kind. The political people today take themselves too seriously. And there needs to be somebody, it was like I described Abby as being somebody who, how can I put it? Who, if he was a carnival barker outside
Shocks them into honesty.
outside the tent, bringing them in.
Shocks them into honesty.
Right, but bringing them in, and then once they're in the tent, the other people get together and give them the sermon. you know, they give him the message. But Abby I loved Abby. God, he was terrific. And they named his kid America because what's her name of the Jefferson Airplane? Grace Slick had a baby named China.
Yeah.
And so he named him America, and he hoped that someday America would fuck China.
Yeah.
He taught me something very interesting about being in hiding, because he was in hiding for about 1.5 years, 2 years, something, maybe more, maybe 3 years. In fact, at a certain point, I became his safe house in New York City. He would come and stay with me, and it would be a safe house because we determined that I wasn't being watched any longer.
The FBI.
Yeah. I had been watched for a while, but then they gave up because he never came by. But anyway, he did this. He would come and stay with me, and it was like it was kind of a weird kind of adventure. I mean, it was kind of exciting in a way, And he then gave himself up, and the reason he ran away to begin with was he said, "I want to run away." He said, and the reason I'm running away is because I need time for this for the heat of this to go away, and then to go to trial or be put into court in a more open-minded atmosphere.
Yeah.
And
he never threw you under the bus and said it was staying at Alex Bennett's?
No. But
Nope.
the thing was that he was right, because what happened was, if he had given himself up, when it was time to, at the very beginning, they would have put him away for 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
As a result, they gave him 1 year and a day, and he could accept that, and then, he was out and about. But by then I had moved to California, so I lost track of him. But he came to San Francisco to give some speeches, and I met back up with him. But if anybody ever asked me who's the biggest character you ever met, I would say it was Abby Hoffman, without a doubt.
Isn't it question time, Robert?
Yeah, Robert, you got some
questions? The host of the show.
Huh?
I think it's time for this first.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, presenting the sequel to my Doctor Doom, the real Doctor Doom, Charlie Wallace, who has tonight's death report. Which is better?
Well, I don't know. 1,375 dead Americans today.
Yeah, well, that's better than it has been. I mean,
well, it was more than yesterday, but yeah, it's better than.
No, but we were up around 4,000, if you may remember.
Oh, a month ago, yeah.
Yeah. So,
I think we're going to see a fourth wave.
Oh yeah. After all this spring break nonsense is over.
Absolutely, and the anti-mask stuff in Texas.
Now, what are we having? We're having a problem here in New York, aren't we, Robert? I keep hearing about this new version of COVID.
Variant.
Yeah, the variant. But is it a variant that defies the?
I don't know. I'm not sure they know how effective the vaccinations are where it comes to all of these variants.
I think
all I do know is that the more people that take the vaccine, then the virus has less opportunity to evolve.
Replicate,
right?
And
they say that
even
with that, you might get it, but it's not going to be serious,
right?
But I'm still not going out. I'm sorry. I'm just I'm playing it safe.
Now that they have the vaccine in a lot of people, they'll know soon enough, probably this month or next, if the vaccines are good against the variants.
Well, they're bragging down in Florida that they've opened everything up and the numbers are not going up.
Well, there's a lot of Republicans.
And I'm saying not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, you know.
Yep.
But
Like the guy that jumps off top of the Empire State Building and passes the 50th floor saying, so far, so good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good
exactly.
so far.
Exactly. Exactly.
That was easy.
I think they should all go to Rand Paul's house.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, did you see
Yeah,
that? Did you see that piece of shit on television?
What an asshole.
What an asshole.
What an asshole.
Today?
But here's what happened. In case how many here don't know what we're
I
talking
missed
about?
it.
Oh, it was
No
just
news today.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Him and Chip Roy show
Rand
today.
Paul.
Chip Roy.
Well, I didn't see that part of it, but I saw.
He's been doing that for a week now.
I saw the Rand Paul thing, and Rand Paul, who, by the way, is an optometrist. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
knows
not
everything.
it's not like he can even cure a cold for you.
He knows it all.
Yeah.
Right.
Take these drops. Yeah.
He says
Call me in the morning.
he says you really shouldn't be going around telling people they have to wear masks if they
It's all theater.
if they've taken the vaccine. And then he said, yeah, it's all theater.
Yeah.
And then Fauci tried to explain 15 different times about the variants. But
Yeah,
Rand Paul had-
but what I like is what Fauci finally said was, Senator, this is no stunt or whatever. This is no grandstanding. This is real. You know,
Shove it up your ass in a nice way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Good for him.
what's with Rand Paul? I mean, what is his?
He's an
problem?
asshole.
He's
He's
an
always
idiot.
been an asshole.
No, but does he wake up in the morning and say, "How can I be a bigger asshole than I was yesterday?"
He does.
Apparently so.
I think
I guess
so.
so.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Chip Roy takes the cake for me
Oh,
today.
okay, now
he's
what-
on a roll, man. That guy with his chin diaper, and it just
Yeah.
all day long, that thing just keeps coming down, and he just rambles on and on and on. And
Well, wait a minute.
So
Tell-
effectively, what he's saying is, first of all, he
Now, is he a senator?
referred to
Is he-
lynching,
wait a minute, is he
as part of his thing.
Is he a senator or a congressman?
He's a congressman from Texas.
Texas.
Okay,
Yeah.
and was this part? This wasn't part of the COVID hearings. This was probably part
No.
of the racism hearings
Yes.
about the
Yes.
Chinese and so on. Yeah.
And he's
Immigration and everything
concerned.
else.
He's concerned that we're trampling on the right to rhetoric.
Yes.
He's
Yeah.
not concerned that Asians are, that the number of incidents against Asians has gone up radically. He's concerned with First Amendment rights. And in so doing, he somehow incorporated the use of lynching, First Amendment rights, and so on.
Not enough
And-
rope in Texas.
Yeah, right. From a tall oak tree.
Let me ask you a
And,
question.
and he's also been railing all week on the immigration issue too.
Yeah.
Well,
So he's not that guy's out of his mind too.
let me ask you a question though here. Is it my imagination where those massage parlors say happy ending style massage parlors, or
Yeah.
weren't they?
Yeah.
Don't know.
What he implied.
I mean,
Yeah.
usually, that kind of massage parlor is, it's but anyway, I assume
If
that
they got flashing, if they have flashing neon lights
Yeah,
outside.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's not the recommendation from your Kaiser.
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not.
You
It's
don't
not.
go there.
It's,
You're not going to get like chiropractic.
it's not covered by.
You
It's
can't
not.
use your Kaiser card there.
No.
It's not
And
covered. It's not.
second of all,
Yeah.
he's
How
making
do you
they're
know?
making a big thing that it wasn't the racist thing, it was a gender thing. Well, that sounds like a lawyer talking to me who happens to know that a hate crime could get punished about twice as highly
Yeah.
as a gender crime. So
Yeah.
I don't believe if you wanted to kill women, you would have picked a supermarket or a hair salon or
Yeah.
Well, when-
come on,
yeah.
I don't buy that shit.
When he
for a
said
minute.
when he said to the cops, it wasn't. I did it, but it wasn't racially motivated. It was sexually motivated. I'm thinking to myself, well, whew, he got off on that one.
No,
I mean,
they'll charge him with racial crimes.
But
Well, he also said
am
that he
I
was headed
wrong?
for
Am I wrong in
Florida.
assuming that when we're talking about, this kind of place, that these were really kind of happy ending
What does that got to do with it? You brought
Yeah,
that
that's
up.
it.
Keep bringing that up.
You seem fixated on this.
The reason I'm bringing it up is
Looking
because
for
what I
addresses.
found very unusual today was that they flew the flag at the Capitol.
Yeah.
At Capitol or White House? Capitol.
White House. And the Capitol.
At half-mast for the women who were killed in the massage parlors. And I went, we've finally come to a point where we're decent enough now to lower the flag at half-mast for hookers.
Yeah.
I think that's really, I think that's a step forward.
And
What
shouldn't
happens
it
if
be
they
at
weren't hookers?
shouldn't it be at full mast?
Probably.
For a massage
Full
parlor?
I'm not trying to make. I'm not trying to
That's
make.
a sign of ED.
I'm not trying to make light of this because these are women who were trying to make a living and survive in this
And they were
country.
killed because they were Asian.
And
That's right.
I don't think it was specifically because they were Asian. I think they happened to. This guy, I think, had some kind of guilt complex about. He went to these places.
They're going to throw
I
hate
call
crimes
BS
on this
on
guy.
Yeah, I don't. I think. Look, he killed them. What more need be said? He admitted.
Yeah, but
to
he
it.
drove by 20 regular massage parlors to get to the Asian ones.
But what I find kind of sad is that part of this problem. I'm trying to put this in a way that people understand that I'm not trying. I have nothing against what these women were doing for a profession. What I have against the society as a whole is these women probably came to this country and this was the only kind of job they could get. Okay? Yeah. And they died for that reason. And it's pathetic and it's sad. And I don't care whether he did it because he was against Chinese or because he was against Asians or because he was against hookers. He was against people who give happy endings. None of that matters. What matters is they're dead. And we live in this culture that just every time we turn around, there's some kind of mass shooting and mass killing. And so this time, hey, there have been a lot of Asians who've been attacked lately. And they've been attacked because we had a president for the longest time who started calling it the Kung Flu because he denigrated the Chinese. He made the Chinese look terrible.
Because he's a racist.
Because he's a racist in that regard. And he has, I think, is again responsible for the murder of these people. This guy is simply the end product of all the hatred he created in this country.
Yeah.
And he probably felt, he could have just as easily gone to a massage parlor that wasn't Asian, okay, and done his killing there, but he didn't. He chose an Asian parlor. So I think that, it had to be in here somewhere. He can say, I didn't do it because of Asians. I did it because they were, because I went there. Because I went there, I came and I felt guilty,
And then he drove to Florida.
What?
Well, his statement
And then he
afterwards.
drove to Florida too. Just like
His statement afterwards was he was headed for Florida to do more.
Yeah.
Tony, till the heat is off, repeat after me. You ordered Chinese food.
Yes.
Yeah, don't
Actually,
ever.
I can't wait to sit down in Hawaiians again. They're not open yet, though.
Oh, really? And it's called, what kind of food is it's called? Chinese food.
Chinese. My mother used to drop it like crazy.
It's Chinese food.
Yell, we're ordering.
No, it's Chinese food.
I forgot. I opened the thing. She kept all the menus. She got menus like.
Listen, I have my wife, as you know, works for a Chinese company. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze here in a second. Hold on.
Do they give happy endings too?
No.
Cookies.
No, very.
Those Christmas bonuses.
And
That's right.
She works for the Chinese, who, by the way, are great employers. I got to tell you, they're terrific. All right, they have treated her so well and with such respect. But anyway, I divert. What I'm saying is that she works with people who are Chinese, who also work in her office with her, or that she deals with in Asia or whatever. She has one couple who we've come to really love, and they don't even. They're not even. He used to work for this company, but he doesn't anymore. He's an American. She's Chinese. Strangely enough, she was working over here for a Chinese company. He was working in Beijing.
Oh, wow.
Right, as an American. And they met up with each other and they got married. And so now, but it's funny that you would think that, you know, she lived there and he lived here. No, it was the other way around. But anyway, they got married. They had lovely people. They have children that are just gorgeous. And the wife is one of the sweetest people in the world, and he's terrific. And we love them both. We just have a real, and they're thinking of moving to China. And they're thinking of moving to China because they're afraid of what's going on now in this country towards Asians.
Question.
So you know, there is a real problem here, and it's perceived as such by people who are Asian. Yes, what were you saying, Alan?
I'm waiting for Robert's question.
What question?
I don't know. Normally he has a question sometime, you know, and then everybody raises their hand. And we found out about car thieves.
You know something, right? While we're talking about Chinese crimes against Chinese in this country now, time for a funny question.
You know, I gotta say,
that sure put a hole in that discussion.
You know, before I came in Tuesday, I watched that part, and Robert asked if anybody had ever hit somebody or been in a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex said he had never been in a fight, but then he named not one, but 4 people that he got in fights with.
Only 2 people. Only 2 people I've ever gotten into fights with.
It was funny.
There's only 2 people I ever got in a fight with.
2? I thought it was 4.
And one of them
I watched it twice.
One of them just died about a week ago.
Oh.
Yeah. So I guess I won the fight.
Did you hear,
huh?
Alex, did you hear Annie Sprinkles died?
What?
Annie Sprinkles died.
Annie Sprinkle died?
Yeah.
Where'd you hear that? When?
It was in the news.
When?
I don't know, a week or 2 ago.
Really? I never heard anything about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
who is that?
Sprinkles.
Annie Sprinkles was
Annie Sprinkle.
Annie Sprinkle, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a sex positive.
She started out oddly enough. She was running the ticket booth at a theater in I think Phoenix, Arizona, or Tucson. I can't remember which. In which Deep Throat got busted. And so Gerard Damiano, director of the picture, came out there to help them with the case and all of that. And he met up with her and brought her back to New York. And then she came and did stuff with me on Midnight Blue. And we had a little thing going for a while. You know,
Midnight Blue.
For a short time.
How is blue spelled?
BLUE. How do you spell blue?
I don't know. You were talking about sexual things, and you and her had something going. Midnight Blue.
Well, anyway, but over the years she's stayed a good friend, and I was one of the first people to make her aware of art, of her ability at being artistic, because I would see stuff she would do. She did a thing with me that I videotaped. And we took, she wanted to do what she called the tit ballet. And what we did is we put on the Blue Danube waltz, and she would move her breasts. We just shot her from here down to her, below her breasts. And then she had velveteen gloves on, these big opera-length gloves.
Is that on YouTube? I want to look at that.
It may be somewhere on there. And then she played the Blue Danube, and she moved them to that. And it became an art piece. It wound up in museums. The only time anything I ever did wound up in a museum. That and one other time that I did a piece of work with Yoko Ono. But I'm so really, she's dead?
Yeah, it was in the New York Times. Her obit was in the New York Times. She's pretty big.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. I got.
You'll be able to Google that.
Huh? Annie Sprinkle.
I'm sure I read it. Annie Sprinkle.
Annie Sprinkle. Okay, let's see here. News. Okay, Annie Sprinkle. No, it doesn't. I don't
Come
see
on, I
anything.
know I heard that. Doesn't say anything?
No,
Cards, huh?
no.
Oh, damn it. Who was it then? It was somebody like her that you used to always interview.
Somebody like her.
It was it was somebody on
Same
your show.
name.
Huh?
No, I just put in Annie Sprinkle dead and nothing comes up. So it's
You need the O.
It's somebody else.
It was somebody else that was you were always interviewing.
What do you mean by somebody I was always interviewing?
Sean Cassidy.
No. She back in San Francisco.
Who about
Stripper. A
her?
what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who?
She was a stripper. A good friend of yours, stripper. Not
Yeah, that's Annie
Marilyn
Sprinkle right
Chambers.
there. That
She's still alive.
yeah.
According to Wikipedia, she's still alive.
Yeah, I didn't think she was dead. You know.
Who the hell? Where did I get that idea from? Oh no, you know who it was?
Yeah.
Margot St. James.
Margot St. James. I hardly ever had
Oh.
Margot St. James on my show.
You did a few times.
A few times, but I can't even remember how often. You know.
Yeah, but she was the same. You know, she was affiliated with Annie Sprinkle.
Yeah, but it's a little different than Annie Sprinkle.
Yeah.
Ah, sorry, I got bad executive functions in the brain.
You know, John. Next time when you have some news like that, make sure it says Donald Trump died today.
Yeah, give us something to be happy about.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Mike Pence died today. Oh no, wait, that was Herbert Hoover. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I knew it was some right-wing guy.
Yeah,
but
somebody.
Couldn't remember exactly who. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to get Margot St. James and Annie Sprinkle mixed up.
Come on, you know, I mean, there are far too many people that the saddest day of my life was when the first woman died that I had ever had. No, I had the first woman to die who I had had sex with.
Yeah.
Was there a correlation?
No.
Oh.
Although my friend Bob Rubin, who we used to interview on this show, he actually was making love to a woman once, and all of a sudden she was dead still, and she died while they were having sex.
Wow.
And I said, "How did that affect you?" I said, "Put me off of sex for a couple of years."
I would think.
You know.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So he didn't finish?
Huh? No.
So he didn't finish.
Oh no! I said, "Did you come?"
No,
That
but
was,
she
of course, that's a question you're always
She's
going to.
finished.
Yeah, she's finished.
Adding new meaning to the term stiffy. Yeah.
So Brian, I thought
Hold
you
on.
collected
Go. I'll see you later. Close the door.
Brian, what?
Adrian just
Brian, I
walked
thought
in.
you
when we're-
collected Cadillacs, yet we see a Honda in your front yard now.
Yeah.
You
So-
live
That
in
was amazing.
Okay, well,
You live
we're
in a
out of
corner.
time. We're out of time. But I was here in the meeting like this. Usually I face out this way, out towards the front. Second time in 3 years, a car skidded across because it's like a little wide turn out there. And if you don't straighten back up, you go into our yard. Guy slid right across and went into our brick wall and into the fence next door.
Hey, that's it. We've run out of time. Jeff, have you said anything tonight?
Yes, one thing, but
What-
I can't remember. What.
But you can't remember what it was. Neither can we. But we love having you here. If you weren't here, it would bother me. Okay. I mean, every now and then I have to hold a mirror up to your part of the screen to make sure
Make
you're
sure
still
I'm
alive.
alive.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Robert. Love having you here. Same thing with you, Alan. Oh, it looked like you were using chapstick there, Brian. Brian, thank you so much. Thank you, Charlie Wallace. And thank you for the death report, John Larkin. I really appreciate it. Yeah, well, you know, those porno actresses, they all look alike. Tony, thank you. I appreciate it. You haven't said much tonight, but call tomorrow night and we'll let you spend the whole night and do all the talking, okay? Kevin, good hearing from you, and great hearing from you, Trucker Steve. The rest of you out there, give a big wave goodbye, and I'll give a big wave goodbye back at you. You know, I will. There they go. There they go. Okay, that's our citizen panel for tonight. Hopefully, a lot of them will be here tomorrow night, along with maybe you. Huh? Love to hear from you. Anyway, that's it for tonight. We'll be back again tomorrow night, right here, same time, same station in life, 10:30 Eastern Daylight Time. In the meantime, as always, if you see her, tell her I love her. And by the way, this is very important. Wear a mask out there. Stay safe. Bye-bye, everybody.